Welcome into Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, can the Braves set the home run record? 2 in a row for Elder, and I like Hollins' attitude. It's all next. It's Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Hittin Hard is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever listening to podcasts. Get the latest episodes of Hittin Hard as soon as they become available. Also, check us out on the Sirius XM app and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. So it was a successful night for the Atlanta Braves. They took the game against the New York Mets 3-2 last night, and they hit a couple of more home runs in the game. Marcell Ozuna homered in the game. He's now got 27 homers on the year, and Eddie Rosario joined the home run club of 20 or more, Braves that have home runs. He hit his 20th last night. And I saw a stat from Sarah Langs, who does a lot of the analytical work and things like that, and she's, stat head and does a great job. But I think it was the fastest that a team has had 7 players get at least 20 homers, in a season. And obviously, look, this team has just been loaded with guys up and down the lineup. Murphy's got 20, 43 for Olson, 28 for Ozzie, 29 for Austin Riley, 20 for Rosario now, 28 for Ronnie, 27 for Ozuna. Even Travis d'Arnaud in a part-time role has got 9 homers for this team. And, Michael Harris has got 11. And then, Arcia, who we talked about yesterday, as the big surprise with 14. So as it sits right now, the Braves with 239 homers in 125 games are on pace to set the all-time record by most home runs for a team. Now, that was just set a few years ago, when the Minnesota Twins hit 307 homers in 2019. 307 homers. The Yankees, not to be outdone, they just came up just a whisker short with 306 home runs. Now, at the current Braves pace, this would put them somewhere 309, 310. It comes out to be, the math itself says 309.74 is how many home runs they would hit. And we talk about all of the remarkable things that the Braves have done this year, and running away with the division and scoring all these runs and all these different things along with it. This could be a situation where they just add this feather into their cap, and now all of a sudden they find themselves, on the mark of history. And again, I think we thought that this team had plenty of power, that this is modern day baseball, right? I mean, it's home runs and strikeouts, and you don't worry about batting average and things like that. But I think the overall depth of what this lineup has shown, again, Marcell Ozuna's had a nice bounce back year, right? He's got 27 homers. He's probably going to be a 30-plus homer guy. Rosario has had a really nice year as well, and he's kind of manned left field and really has kind of not given Braves fans a lot of angst or a lot of reason to really be kind of upset or, worried about what left field is going to be. He's probably going to be somewhere around 25 homers. Sean Murphy obviously has come over after getting himself out of the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, which is one of the worst hitting parks in all of Major League Baseball. One of the toughest parks to hit in, just in general. Like that's just a barren wasteland to hit in. Obviously he's put up a big number. And again, when you combine what d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy has come up with, they're going to be over 30 home runs at the catcher position. And then obviously Ronnie has had a year where, he's not just the MVP of the league, but now he's on pace for 75 stolen base. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, and again, we talked about this a few weeks ago, that maybe the Braves could find their way into having something that hasn't happened in 50 years, and that's 340 home run hitters in their lineup. But that team, even when you look at in 73, it was Davey Johnson, Darrell Evans, Hank Aaron. They were all 40 home run hitters, but they didn't have obviously the balance that this lineup has. When you look up and down this lineup, I mean, again, d'Arnaud is most likely going to be a double-digit home run guy as a guy coming off the bench. Michael Harris is going to be, close to 15 home runs. Orlando Arcia, I mean, who knows? I mean, if he gets to 20 home runs, I mean, you think about the fact that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys now. And if you add an eighth guy, I mean, think about how many home runs that is in one lineup. And we've talked about the idea of, look, that's what makes this lineup so special, is they've gotten contributions out of everybody this year. Like, everything has come together for this lineup this year. It's not a matter of somebody's having a really poor season. Michael Harris, is having a really poor sophomore season. Well, I mean, he's, played pretty well. And I mean, he's had his struggles, but still he's hitting over 280 and got 11 homers and 17 steals, with a 330 on base. I mean, Marcell Ozuna. Okay. Well, he's up to 27 homers. Rosario, questions in left field. Can he bounce back? Well, he's got over 20 homers. He's got 20 homers now and, played at least a decent enough left field. Well, how good is Murphy? Well, again, besides, we knew he was a great glove, but now we see that when he's get a chance to play every day in a decent hitting park, he can round out his offensive numbers. So the depth of this lineup and just how good they are, look, I think they're going to break the record. I have no reason to think that they can't break this. I mean, if you're gonna hit 2 home runs a night, and now the Braves have 37 games left to play, and they're sitting at 239 homers. There's no reason to think that they can't get to at least 310 home runs. And what a remarkable accomplishment. Again, they're not just and the Twins, when they hit their 309 home runs, they finished 101 in 60. But it didn't feel like that they were a complete team. Right. I mean, a couple of years ago, and by the way, they lost to the Yankees in their first round of the playoffs. Again, they had gotten beat by the team that hit one less home run than what they did. Didn't feel like the Minnesota Twins, having set that record, were a complete team. This obviously feels like it's a much more complete team. Like, we have the starting pitching. I still think Strider's right there in the hunt for the Cy Young Award. Max Fried is obviously a godsend to have. We'll talk about Elder here in just a couple of minutes. And obviously Morton has had a nice bounce back year where he may set his career high in wins. So again, this lineup has just been remarkable how good that they are, how efficient that they have been, and up and down the lineup. I mean, it's just power personified. And again, it's not just one or two guys, it's everybody. I mean, when you look at, Baseball Reference and you go through and you just look at all of the numbers, 20, 43, 28, 14, 29, 20, 11, 28, 27, for the main guys that are on this club, like, it's remarkable. And I'll predict it. I mean, not that I'm stepping out on a limb and, hot take Tommy or whatever, but, again, I think they're going to break the record. I think they're going to break the record. And this is a much more complete team. And certainly I think that they, again, the way baseball works now, these records are going to be probably broken in a couple of years at the way the game is being played. But let's enjoy it potentially for how long it lasts, because it is a remarkable achievement. And certainly the Braves have just been power personified up and down this lineup. And obviously that there is just, no holes in this lineup to speak of. Nobody is just a Punch and Judy type of hitter. You look at this entire lineup, everybody can take you deep. And if you make a mistake to the wrong guy, that ball is going to end up over the fence. So good win, but more importantly is this team may end up setting the home run record when all is said and done. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And look, FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long. So here's what we got going on right now. Go to FanDuel and bet on a Super Bowl winner. And when you do, you'll get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. You think the Falcons are going to win the Super Bowl? Bet on them. And every time the Falcons win, they'll give you bonus bets. And bonus bets, just pick any team to win the Super Bowl and you'll get the bonus bets every time. Now, look, bonus bets can be used to bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, everything in between. So here's what you do. You go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and start earning bonus bets right now with America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. Bet on your Super Bowl winner and win all season long with FanDuel. So it's 2 in a row for Bryce Elder. He couldn't hang on in the 6th inning last night, but through the first 5 innings, he was remarkable last night. Another 5 innings, with no earned runs in the first 5 innings, but then he ended up, pitching only 5 1/3, and he gave up, another hit and had an earned run. But when you look at his line in total, 5 1/3 runs, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts on 90 pitches. And he just couldn't get through that 6th inning. And I was hoping, again, he was only at 80 some pitches. I think it was 81 pitches heading into the 6th inning, but he just find a way to hang on for it. But he picks up his 10th win. He's now 10-4, drops his ERA to 3.39. And look, this is what we were hoping for, is this bounce back. I mean, he's had a rough, not just second half, but really like a last 11, 12 starts. And we broke all this down. Again, the first 11, 1.93 ERA, second 11 starts, 5.07 ERA. But you feel better now that he's made back-to-back starts that have been outstanding. He's only given up 1 run in his last 12 1/3 inning. So it feels like, hopefully that this thing has turned itself around and he's kind of righted this ship. Because again, this is not about the division. It's not about the Mutts or, the Marlins or the Philadelphia Phillies or anything like that. This is about the bigger picture. This is about getting guys right from playoff time. This is about getting our starting rotation set and feeling like we can give the ball to anybody in our rotation. And especially 1 through 4, we can give the ball to our top 4 guys and have a chance to win every time out. And Elder was one of those guys that, honestly, for the last month or so here, you've kind of questioned yourself about, okay, can he hang on to a playoff spot in the rotation? Well, again, and I know it's only 2 starts, but we said this after the last one. Okay, let me see it 2 in a row. Okay, well, he went out and did it last night. Now let me see it 3 in a row. Look, I don't want to get into a situation like last year when I've got a guy coming back from an oblique that's not 100% healthy, and I've got one of my other starters throwing up in a bucket. Like, I don't want to get into that scenario. This team is too good and too talented to have those kinds of things happen. And I understand that in the world of baseball, anything can happen, right? We learned that from Leo. Anything can happen in a short series. But there's no reason for this team to get derailed. I mean, again, we just talked about setting the home run record, and, the division is just a laughing stock right now, and, all these different things. No reason for this franchise and this team specifically to get derailed in this. And they are the best team in the National League. I know the Dodgers are now fighting for that #1 spot and all this kind of stuff, but the Braves have been the most complete team all season long. But I don't want to get this thing derailed. I don't want this thing to go sideways where all of a sudden, an Elder who we are going to count on in the playoffs. Again, it's not like we're getting a magical fifth starter, to all of a sudden start pitching for us. Jared Schuster is all of a sudden not going to rise up and just dominate the league the rest of the year. It's Morton, Fried, Strider, Elder. That's the 4 guys that I have to have right. That's the 4 guys that have to be able to carry me through the playoffs. Again, if you need a 5th starter, which you may not, but we can figure that part of it out. But I have to have those 4 guys be locked down and be healthy and ready to go and on their A game when we get into the playoffs. I don't want to monkey around like we did last year. And like I said, have guys throwing up in buckets or, coming back from injuries that really, didn't look like that they were right and healthy and everything. Like, can't really have that now. And so, again, this is a situation where we're looking at the long term in this. We're looking at the end game in all of this. And I don't want anything to get us derailed from what the ultimate goal is, and that's winning the World Series. And again, I need Strider and Elder and Max Fried and Charlie Morton. Like, I'm going to be locked in to seeing what those 4 guys do down the stretch. And that was a good second step, not first step. That was a good second step in what Bryce Elder can be. If I can get Bryce Elder to get himself back to what he was in the first 11 starts of the year, you feel pretty confident about going into these series. Again, you're not going to mash your way through the playoffs. We've talked about this, and again, you saw that 2003 team. You don't need a better representative in history than that 2003 Braves team. For all of that power and all of that batting average and all the run production that team had, and that's the modern day run scored record for the Braves franchise, it just went to crap once they got against Pryor and Wood. And Sheffield couldn't do anything. Javi didn't do much. Chipper was bleh. Don't want that again. And I'm not relying on the idea of we're just going to be able to slug our way through and home run our way through. That didn't work out for the Twins a few years ago. And it's just not how baseball works. You've still got to be able to pitch and play defense and move runners along and do the little things well. And Elder being a part of all of this is a big key, because he's going to get his playoff starts. And the way it works, I mean, again, you don't have as much time. There are multiple rounds of playoffs and multiple series and all this kind of stuff. You need a guy like Elder to be able to lock down one of those spots and feel confident that he can take the ball every 5th day or what have you and go out there and pitch you to a victory. So good for Elder. 2 good starts in a row now. Again, I'll say it. Let me see 3 in a row. Let me see 3 in a row. Let me feel better about what our 4th starter position is going to be. Not have lots of questions headed toward the playoffs, as again, the playoffs will be here in a few weeks. This thing will happen very, very quickly. Just like the Falcons preseason, this thing is going to happen very, very quickly. All right, as you listen in to Hittin' Hard, make sure you go in and leave us a comment on whatever podcast platform that you're listening on. Let us know that you're an everyday listener to the program. We thank you so much for being a part of our community, but let us know on whatever platform it is in the comment section that you're an everydayer to the program, that you listen in 5 days a week. And again, we thank you so much for being a part of this ride and this journey. So I liked what Mack Hollins had to say. He was speaking with my buddy Scott Bair from the Falcons digital media team. And, obviously, look, he's one of those guys that has kind of surprised people. I mean, it's not that he necessarily came out of nowhere, but I don't know if Falcons fans were really aware of, his production, but he's come over here and really kind of captured the imagination. I know he doesn't wear shoes or socks or anything like that. He's one with the ground and all this kind of stuff. But I like his mindset about this wide receiver position group. And again, I don't know if we're calling them wide receivers or not. We don't want to have position football, but he talked about this. He had this quote in talking about things right after Monday's practice. Quote, "Nobody has a spot locked in our room. That's our mindset, that you compete every day. I'm not a starter. Drake isn't a starter. Scotty Miller isn't a starter. Every day is a competition where you have an opportunity to prove yourself. That's how we'll go all the way through the end of the season. Every week is an opportunity to take a start." And Hollins summed up the situation by using a phrase he often uses with his fellow wide receivers. Quote, "I've been saying it since I got here. There are no free lunches." And look, that's been one of the big themes about what this training camp has been, and even going into the preseason, has been the idea of competition. And now look, okay, reality. Okay, we cut through the fog and we get down to brass tacks. Look, Hollins is going to be a starter. Drake London's going to be a starter. Pitts is a star. I mean, again, there is a reality to this. But I like that mindset that everybody's got to compete. Everybody's got to compete to be better. And we need that because, again, all of our draft capital is tied up in the Bijan Robinsons or Bichon Robinson, Drake London's, Kyle Pitts. Like, those are the guys that we have to roll with. And if Hollins can get these guys to be motivated to be better and compete every day and fight for their spot, good for them. Because I need more of that. I mean, honestly, like, again, those are going to have to be the guys, Bichon, Drake, Pitts, that we hitch our wagon to with our franchise. I mean, sorry. I mean, I don't have that fire breather coming off the edge. I don't have Pat Mahomes at quarterback. I don't have some of these things that other teams can latch themselves onto. I'm rolling with, the three-headed monster of our offensive skill position people. So if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And I like the fact that Mack Hollins is talking about competition every day. Now, again, I understand the reality of the situation. Like, none of those guys are going to get cut, or none of them aren't going to be starters or this, that, and the other. But I need Scotty Miller to perform well. I need us to be an elite red zone team. I was talking about this with Steve Weish last night. That's the NFL. You have to be great in the red zone. That's a lot of what goes into the NFL. Have we not talked about this repeatedly? 67% touchdown percentage in the red zone. That's what I need out of this team. And if everybody's got to be better and everybody's competing and everybody is hungry for their spots, then we can potentially get there. But again, I like the mindset that he's conveying that message to this team, that he's talking about this with these guys. From Hollins again, quote, "Nothing is set in stone. Every day is a work day. Every day is a competition." That's the message that has been in our room, and that's the message that will stay in this room. Like I said, hey, good for him. And if he can create that mindset, and again, I'm a fan of Mack Hollins, and if he's going to be the leader of that, positionless room, good on him. I don't really care what the name is on the back of the jersey, just as far as, who's the leader, this, that, and the other. I just need these guys to perform, right? I always talk about this. I don't care about the labor pains. Just show me the baby. I don't want to know how the watch is made. Just tell me what time it is. I'm a net result kind of guy. And I need those three guys, the Bichon, Pitts, London, I need them to be big time. This is why I continue to beat the drum about, we have to have Kyle Pitts be Travis Kelce. Oh, that pressure and all that. Hey, man, that's the territory that you live in. When your franchise hitches your wagon to those guys, you have to perform at a high level, or we're not going to get where we need to be. I can't sit around and wait for other guys to lift us up. It has to be the Bichons and the Drakes and the Pitts of the world. And if Mack Hollins is going in there as a fire breather, and he's getting these guys to rally around the idea of every day is a competition, and everybody's competing for their spots, and nobody's guaranteed everything. And as he says, no free lunches. I love that. I love that mentality. I love that idea of getting that message across to these guys. Because, again, we've not been a successful franchise. And, as we talked about yesterday on the show, again, you can miss me with the whole mindset of, the reason we haven't been a good franchise is because we've been in cap purgatory or this or that, or we've had dead money and we haven't been able to sign guys. Well, again, that's not the real reason why we've not been good for 5 years. Sorry. I mean, again, you could miss me with that whole mindset that, our cap situation has been why we've been stuck in a rut for 5 years. You can still draft Micah Parsons and have an entire game-wrecking player on your defense and change the whole culture of your defense. But that's, again, that we'll talk about that at another point. But for right now, we have Bichon and we have Drake and we have Pitts, and everything, has to rest on those guys' shoulders, and Desmond Ridder to a degree, as well. But our high draft capital is in those guys specifically, and especially, Pitts and London. I mean, again, those guys have to be fire breathers on our offensive side. So good for Mack Hollins. I enjoyed what he had to say, and I like his mentality, and I like his attitude. I think he's going to be a real breath of fresh air. Besides his play on the field, I think he's going to be a real breath of fresh air. We talk about Calais Campbell and some of these guys. I think Mack Hollins is going to be one of those guys that's going to be a real breath of fresh air in that locker room and really create a winning mindset and a real competition mindset for this team. All right, well, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard your first listen. Be sure to go in and leave us a comment on whatever podcast platform that you listen on. Let us know that you're an everydayer to the program, that you listen in 5 days a week. So we thank you so much for being a part of our community. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can get the latest episodes of Hittin' Hard as soon as they become available. Also, check us out on the Sirius XM app as well, and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. We'll preview Falcons and Pittsburgh coming up tomorrow. This has been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.